from the next part of the Gemara that we're going to do today. This is on Chav Zayin Amud Bet. Amar le Rav Abba le Rav Ashi. Rav Abba said to Rav Ashi, Hachi Amrei b'ma'arava mishmeit Rav Ula. This is what they say in the West in the name of Rav Ula. Lefi she'ein darchan shel b'nei adam lehitboneim b'drachim. Since it is not the way of people to calculate on the pathways. So what is Ula saying, and why is he saying this? So Ula is answering this question of Amai Patur, all the way back at the beginning. Why, in the case of our Mishnah, do we say that when someone trips in the Reshut Harabim and breaks a kli, where they trip on a kli and break it, why are they Patur? And Ula simply says, because it's not the way of people when they usually walk to be examining and calculating exactly where they're walking, if they're walking in the Reshut Harabim. So Ula is telling us that this deen of the Mishnah of Patur will pretty much always apply as long as it happened in the Reshut Harabim. Hava uvda benahardia v'chayav Shmuel. So there was an incident that happened in Nahardia, and Shmuel, who was the Rosh, Beit Midrash there, he said that the person was chayav. So there was an incident that was similar to this case where somebody tripped and broke a kli, and Shmuel said they're chayav. B'pumbedita v'chayav Rava. And when a similar incident, happened in Pumbedita, but Rava said the person was also chayav. So we have a difference of opinion from Ula, clearly from Shmuel, and it seems like from Rava also. But now the Gemara points out, Bishlama Shmuel kishmatei. Obviously, it makes sense that Shmuel would hold according to his opinion, because we learned Shmuel's opinion much earlier in the Gemara. Shmuel said, why is the person in the Mishnah patur for paying for the kli? It was because of a case, Shmuel Amar ba'afei la shanu. It was because it was too dark, so the person really couldn't see. So we could imagine that in all other cases where it's not too dark and the person could see where they were walking and that there was a kli there, then they would have been chayav. So Shmuel's deen in this case makes sense. It's consistent with his opinion. But now let's think about Rava. Elo Rava lima kishmuel svirale. Rather, Rava, should we say that he thinks like Shmuel, is the reason why Rava said that the person is chayav the exact same reason that Shmuel said they're chayav? Because Shmuel said they're chayav because the Mishnah only had the din of patur since it was pitch black and the person couldn't see. Did Rava have the same reasoning? Amar Rav Papa said, Karna de atzra have. This case was one where they turned a corner in an olive press. So the case that happened, this case that Rava ruled on, where somebody broke somebody else's kli in the Reshut Harabim, it wasn't just any place in the Reshut Harabim, it was specifically in an olive press. That since it was with permission that the person did it, meaning that when people would go to an olive press, they would wait for the olives to be pressed, and they would wait to collect the oil. So it was very common when people went to an olive press to leave their jugs on the ground. Even though it was Reshut Harabim, there was kind of an agreement, right? The person who left their jug in this olive press did it with permission, right? With the kind of joint societal permission that in this particular kind of public place, we know that it's acceptable that people will usually leave their objects on the floor. So in this case, Rava said the person who broke the kli by the olive press should be chayav. Why? Because he should have watched where he was walking, right? He should have watched first and then gone. So we see here that Rava thinks that this case where the person is chayav, it's not because Rava agrees with Shmuel or necessarily with any of these other opinions. Rava thinks that there's an exception to the general rule that tripping on something in Reshut Harabim would mean that the person who tripped and broke the kli is patur. The exception would be if you were in a public place where the person who left the jug there had permission, right? It's a common place where people would leave things out in the Reshut Harabim. In that case, the person who broke it would be chayav because they should have been watching where they were walking.